Well, good afternoon. Of course, this is Pastor David speaking to you. Just want to give a few updates in regard to our upcoming church services at our church, at Sunrise Bible Church. As most of you know, on Saturday, our governor announced that churches and other religious institutions are allowed to be open meeting in their buildings starting this week. And as exciting as that sounds, there are actually a number of complications that go with that. Chiefly, the first is that we would be required to only use our building up to 25% of its capacity. And what that means is 25% of any given meeting space. So that would only be, for instance, 25% of our auditorium. Practically, what that entails is that it would be impossible for us to all meet in a single service. In fact, I don't believe we could actually do it in two services. We would actually probably be looking at three services in order to get everybody in. On top of that, there are a number of other regulations that go along with this, including that we would have to be able to maintain a 6-foot distance between all family units throughout the entire time of our service. And that includes single people and everything else. And if you just start doing the math and try to figure that out, it is not an easy thing. Just think about hallways and restrooms and what they're asking in terms of having staggered entrances and exits and all kinds of things like that. The deacons and we met last night to talk about these things. And at this point, on top of all of the things that I just mentioned, in addition, we have things like legal issues, liability issues, and then just, for me, a concern as a pastor that there would be some people who are currently meeting with us that might be unable or uncomfortable with coming inside the building. At this time, we just don't feel there's much advantage for us to be meeting inside the building other than the weather. And obviously that hasn't always cooperated with us, but we can deal with that. So for the time being, we're going to continue to meet outdoors here on the church grounds. There's a couple of changes that go along with this. First of all, our building will be open for restroom use. You're welcome to use those. As before, if you don't need it, we'd encourage you to hold off. But if you do, we're going to make sure all the doors are open so that you can use that. Second, we're going to move our time to 10:30 instead of 11 o'clock. 10:30 instead of 11 o'clock. Before we did that because we were concerned about how cold it might be a little earlier. But now we're getting to that point of the year where the opposite might be the problem. So 10:30 going forward. I know that this is a difficult time, and I appreciate so much many of you praying for me and for the leadership of our church. I know many of you are, because you've reached out and you've told me that, and I just cannot tell you how encouraging that has been to me and to my own soul. Not a perfect thing right now, but a couple of weeks ago I wrote a blog post on our church website about why churches need to be open, and in it I argued that a church doesn't need a building to be open, that a field works just fine. For a church to be a church, we don't need 4 walls and a roof. We need people redeemed by the blood of Christ gathered together week by week. And for now, we can do that outdoors. And I'm thanking God for that opportunity, praying for good weather, and praying for you as you continue to pray and encourage me. God bless, and we hope to see you this Sunday.